Frank Klose, who joins us now here on the Sports Bash. Is JT just a tease? In other words, are they trying to get you all excited, knowing they're not going to do anything else, and that this is all you're getting out of this team? And is that enough? Let's bring Frank into the conversation and get some thoughts from him from 97.3 ESPN.com. What's going on, Frank?
Hey, good to see you guys.
As always, bud. We don't know the official start of pitchers and catchers, but spring training is 1 week. The first pitch of the Grapefruit League is 1 month from today, February 27th. They're supposed to play Toronto in Clearwater. But JT Realmuto, let's get your thoughts. 5 years, $115 million. There's a little quirkiness to this deal. So overall, what did you think of the deal the two sides agreed on?
Well, I definitely excuse me.
Oh, he goes for the blow of the
I'm on video now,
nose.
right? For some of you out there. So, no, I was blowing my nose, those of you listening over the air. But no, a deal the Phillies had to get done. I thought that the Phillies needed...
Was that a handkerchief in your arm sleeve there?
Well, I had it in my hand here, just waiting for it. But, the Phillies were the team that needed him the most. Most of the other teams that were in on Realmuto kind of just wanted a star player. You look at Toronto, they get George Springer. In fact, there's less risk if they get an outfielder than getting a catcher. So they were willing to go more money and more years for Springer. So that the Phillies didn't have a lot of competition once the Mets signed James McCann. And what got the deal done was this token sort of milestone that he is now the largest AAV catcher by $100,000 a year. They just barely got it over that finish line so that he could boast that he did that. I know that's important to some agents, but the Phillies get the guy that was so important to the team the last 2 years. And if you're going to start the offseason, you got to get him back just as like the baseline. Like you can't be worse than last year. So I think JT Realmuto coming back to the Phillies makes the team whole, and they can build from there.
So they bring back Realmuto. They still need shortstop. 3 shortstops went off the board last night. So is that a fait accompli that DD is back, or are they going to go in with possibly Gene Segura or Scott Kingery playing shortstop?
Well, I thought they made it pretty clear that they were not on board with their other guys playing shortstop this year. Scott Kingery played shortstop for a while. I don't think they want that. I don't think they want Gene Segura playing shortstop. So I'm pretty sure they're going to get somebody, and the fact that all 3 went off the board kind of, I think, increases the Phillies' chances of bringing back Didi Gregorius. When Andrelton Simmons went off, I think he was the best backup plan out there, personally. But once he's off the board, and all of them go off the board like that, that only leaves 2 potential suitors. And you know what? The Reds spent the offseason clearing payroll. I don't think the Reds are going to spend that kind of money on Didi. I think you didn't clear that money so that you could just sign Didi Gregorius. So I think the Phillies will re-sign Didi Gregorius. And I think one indication of that, too, was Freddie Galvis. I mean, Freddie Galvis would not have signed that very modest $1.5 million deal if the other dominoes kind of didn't fall already. So I kind of see Galvis having the advantage of holding out until everybody kind of fit in where they were going to fit in. Because and certainly for Galvis, I mean, playing for the Orioles for $1.5 million, I mean, that's not a wonderful contract. I mean, he's earned much more than that the last several years. So, at least for the Phillies, if they had somebody like Galvis, you could throw him out there in the later innings if you're gonna try to start the game with Gene Segura at shortstop. But I'm feeling like this is going to happen. I think the Phillies need to do what happened with JT Realmuto. I think they need to pay Gregorius an average annual value more than the $14 million he signed last year. I don't think he did anything that said that he deserves a pay cut. So I think if they get over that, they can get him. And I think they can definitely get him if they're willing to go for a second year.
This fan base has been screaming to sign JT forever now and to say, hey, give him whatever he wants. But I feel like we have to sit back and actually give credit. Now, they might have looked into this. Maybe it wasn't the best way to go about things, but it did work out in their favor. We actually have to give credit to Middleton and Matt Klentak and Andy McPhail for waiting out the market and not just jumping on him for, a 7-year deal at $150, $160, $170 million. Because this is very reasonable. But things that were being discussed prior, I don't think that would have been the case.
Yeah, I think the one wild card that really was the carrot at the end of the stick for Realmuto was the New York Mets getting a new owner. So you have a guy with lots of money who didn't lose money last year. He's the only owner in baseball who didn't lose money last year and isn't sort of reeling from that. But once the Mets were off the board, I mean that's the market kind of fell like the Phillies thought it would. I mean, that we've been saying this for a long time that the catching position is a tough one. The body gets the wear and tear. We've seen what happened in the past with contracts to the likes of Darren Dalton. You know, the catchers tend to break down later in those deals. I say tend to. I mean, you can't predict the future, but that's the one thing that has kept the catching position to a minimum in terms of numbers of years to contracts that have been signed over the years. And I think that the Phillies accurately read the market that there weren't a lot of teams willing to give a really long deal. I thought the Mets might, just because the Mets were a team that needed to make some sort of impact move, and they already did. They traded for Frankie Lindor, and they still might be in on Trevor Bauer. So the Mets did a lot by not signing Realmuto, and I think the Phillies did a good job reading the market there.
Frank Klose, 97.3 ESPN.com. JT Realmuto gets the deal. He's back. So the lineup's back essentially, except for shortstop right now. You got exactly the same everyday lineup, except no DH. So that's going to be interesting to see how they kind of tiptoe around that every day. Same starting rotation. So essentially they're saying this team was good enough, we just needed to fix our bullpen. Is fixing the bullpen enough to say this team can compete for the playoffs?
They need a starter. I would not say that they're going to leave things as they are. So remember, Arrieta's off the board, which means that Spencer Howard and Vince Velasquez would have to start. And then you have no sixth starter. I mean, they signed Devon Nova yesterday to a minor league deal, and he could maybe make the team. I don't know if they count on him as a starter at this point either, because he didn't pitch very much last year. So I think they need a starter, absolutely, at least one, preferably two. But on top of that, I think that the bullpen is something they're still going to address. There was a report today from John Heyman that the Phillies were runners-up on Darren O'Day, who ended up signing with the New York Yankees. So I think that if the Phillies were going after Darren O'Day, then there's a good chance that the Phillies are actively working on the bullpen. And so I would expect that they bring in at least another piece, if not two.
Who's still available in bullpen?
Alex Colomé is a possible back end option as a closer, and there's a lot of the middle of the road guys, the O'Day types. There's not one name that really kind of like stands out as the super powerful relief arm since Brad Hand is off the board. But I think there's some nice pieces out there that they could get. I wouldn't be shocked if they look for a reunion with Jose Alvarez, provided he's healed from his little injury there. I'm sure he is. God, I hope he is for his sake. But Jose Alvarez coming back, maybe. Blake Parker's out there. I mean, there's some guys they could get that did a decent job for them last year, even. But and of course, all the disastrous parts of the bullpen the Phillies let loose are all still free agents.
The way that
they want them back, though.
Yeah, for real. The way that I view this, though, is, look, people are happy with the signing, but realize they're not going to compete for the division. But when you look at this, I feel you can tie it to what the Sixers did. Daryl Morey came in here, and it was a mess. And he moved on from Al Horford, and yeah, they're more exciting, but they're not there yet. With Dave Dombrowski signing JT Realmuto, while it might not be sexy because he's just returning, and it's like, hey, we're bringing back the same team, but just maybe tweaking a little, it's not going to be fixable in one season, and this is step one in maybe a 4-step process. Do you view it the same way?
I think one reason why they might like a Gregorius deal to be a year, if they can pull it off, is it gives them more options next year. I mean, the next year's free agent class is going to be so much stronger if they want to go that route. I'm surprised they haven't been more active on the trade front. They still could be. I mean, there's still some teams that want to unload some money. The Phillies could take advantage, but I do think that there is a sense from the Dombrowski front office that the Phillies aren't just a move or two away, and I think they're gonna do their best to bring in some pieces that are gonna hopefully make the Phillies contender. But at the same time, I don't think they're going to go for broke by any means. I don't think they want to trade any prospects. I don't think they want to give up any draft picks, signing any free agents. So I think they're going to I think he's going to proceed kind of playing it safe, and definitely the fact that we see that they're active right now, and they haven't been to this point, and the Bradley deal was for 1 year. I think they're going to proceed with moves that are kind of low risk, but have the potential for high reward. And maybe you get lucky this season.
Frank Klose, 97.3 ESPN.com, talking Phillies. Let me ask you about the bullpen then. If the bullpen is better, or it better be better because that was the worst ever last year, but do you feel good that, yeah, they are going to be better? This bullpen's not, well, they have to be better. Is there legitimate talent that, yeah, okay, we don't know, but they should be a serviceable bullpen?
There's still a lot of unknowns. I mean, they traded for a couple guys that throw hard in Sean Coonrod and Jose Alvarado. They're kind of wild cards, unfortunately. There's certainly no sure bet. You like what you saw from Jojo Romero as a reliever last year. You like what you saw from Connor Brogdon in limited action as somebody who could help in the future. And then you have the likes of David Hale, who's kind of like your veteran, not going to totally blow up in the middle innings, but isn't going to be your lockdown reliever. And then they have Neris and now Bradley at the back. It's got to be better than last year, right? I mean, that bullpen was historically bad, and at least by accident, it's got to be better, right? So, but again, there's still too many unknowns. I mean, there's going to be some growing pains with Romero and Brogdon, even though they might be nice relievers for this team. You don't want it to be where Neris has a bad year, like he's been up and down. If he's having a bad year, and then you start having David Hale pitch your 8th and 9th inning, then that's not good. No offense to David Hale, I think they got him to be sort of the middle innings type. So they definitely need some more pieces. And the news that came out today that they were runners up for Darren O'Day, I think they're still going to try to find at least one more established major league reliever, and hopefully even two.
What are your thoughts on this defense from the infield? If right now it's Gene Segura at shortstop, so you're talking about Alec Boehm at third base, who, look, I love what he does at the plate, but we can all agree that it's been bad defensively. Gene Segura, who makes some errors. Scott Kingery at second, who, is a little bit of a nice defender, and Rhys Hoskins at first base, who's bad. So that is really concerning to me.
Yeah, that's why they need a shortstop, especially up the middle. I think Gene Segura is a good defensive second baseman. I would say he's fair to good at shortstop, but I think they need a better shortstop given what you just said. And I think if they had their druthers going ahead after this year, you might see Alec Boehm at first base and Rhys Hoskins as a DH if they have a DH. I mean, it's kind of remarkable that isn't totally resolved yet because, I mean, let's face it, pitchers and catchers are supposed to report on the 17th, and you don't know yet. As you still are putting the final, for most teams, normally by now they're putting together their final pieces. And if you're going to have a designated hitter who's one of your starting positions, that you really need to know.
Yeah, and clearly they are targeting a shortstop. So what does this say about Scott Kingery? Are they losing faith in him? Do they see him as like a versatile player that can play everywhere? Well, if that's the case, does that tell you that maybe they're down on him? Can he play center field? I just feel if you are making that move and putting Gene Segura at second, it's almost as if a statement to Scott Kingery, unless I'm reading this wrong.
No, I don't think there's a statement. I mean, look, last year Scott Kingery had COVID-19 pretty bad. It really did ruffle him up at the most important time of the season, and I really think that he's somebody still with some potential. But I do see him more as a second baseman. If there's a DH, you could have Segura at third, Kingery at second, and then at first base, Boehm, and then Hoskins as DH. Or if Hoskins doesn't start on time, which is a possibility, we haven't really gotten much of a health update from Hoskins, and Hoskins maybe doesn't start the year and you need him. Or at least right now there's some movable pieces. I think Kingery's versatility is possible. I think if they had their druthers, they would have traded Segura. There was some interest from the Blue Jays early on. They ended up getting Marcus Semien to fill that role. Even he's going to move to second base to play second base for the Jays. But I think that ideally down the line, Kingery could be your second baseman. But the fact that he can bounce around is very, very helpful right now, given the given the uncertainty at a couple positions, including center field, as you mentioned. I see Ruben Joseph saying, we also need center field. Well. Center field is kind of up in the air. I'm okay with the Phillies kind of moving forward with what they have. I mean, they do at least have options. I think Roman Quinn, one of these years, whether it's for the Phillies or somebody else, is going to stay healthy for a whole year and have a great year for somebody. But obviously the Phillies probably don't have the patience to wait it out much longer. But the fact that you could throw him in center, I think the movable pieces last year, especially with the DH, was one of the Phillies' strengths offensively. And while I think if Kingery had to start, it would be at second base. I would not put him at shortstop. I think we still need to see what he's all about.
All right, so we're about a month. We are 1 month away from the start of the Grapefruit League. JT Realmuto's in, maybe Didi Gregorius, possibly some more bullpen help. Hopefully, Dave Dombrowski has another move up his sleeve. Let me ask you right now, Frank, Phillies are where in the NL East?
Oh boy, this is a tough one. I think
there's only 5 teams.
Yeah, I don't know how much I love Washington. Braves, I think, are still kind of the first place team with all that young talent. The Mets could be second, depending on what they do. Maybe the Phillies and Nats could be fighting for third or fourth. But who knows? Who knows what the playoff system will be? That might be good enough.
All right. We, of course, will keep our eyes on the Phillies offseason and what they do next. But they did get the first hurdle. JT Realmuto's back, and he'll be behind the plate for the next 5 years at over $23 million a season. We'll see how long that deal looks like a good deal. But for now, it's a good deal for Phillies fans because they finally did something. Frank Klose, everybody, 97.3 ESPN.com. Check out all his Phillies coverage for the 2021 season. And Frank, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. Thanks, Frank.
Great to see you guys.
Yeah, man, and he will be with us, of course, all season long. There's an edition of Powder Blue Podcasts up on our website right now at 97.3ESPN.com, so you can go listen to their thoughts on the decision to bring back JT Realmuto.